Let's talk about the blasphemy and folly of the Paris Olympics. The Olympics this year was clearly a satanic ceremony using the guise of sports, unity, glamour, and color. But all the world seems to be abuzz about the opening ceremony in particular, and rightly so, because the opening ceremony was a horrendous twist and mockery of the Last Supper. You have the stage opening up with a bearded female, transgender. You have a line of gays and transgender dancers lining a table. And at the center of this table, you have a woman who wears a halo-like crown, suggesting her divinity. And this is all a very clear replication of Jesus and his disciples seated at the Last Supper before his crucifixion. On top of that, one of the dancers at the table was standing and clearly exposing his genitals. And you have the Greek god Dionysus added to the scene. You see this overweight, near-naked man, painted entirely in blue, and he's lying suggestively on the table before this false female figure who has taken Jesus' place. There are even little children on the stage who are being exposed to this shameless motley crew. The whole scene is sacrilegious. It reeks of sexual deviancy. By the way, the choreographer who designed it, Thomas Jolly, is a Jewish man who is homosexual. And the woman who played the role in place of Jesus is a Jewish woman who is a lesbian. As a kid, I used to dream of being a part of the Olympics as a swimmer. It was so inspirational, a picture of achieving the heights of endurance and excellence. But the Olympics today has been horribly tainted. Progressively, we see the infiltration of performances that are beyond inappropriate, and this year, downright blasphemous. And the high regard I once held for the Olympics is completely shattered. I want nothing to do with this anymore. There are calls and voices from around the world to boycott the Olympics. I have to agree, though it's very sad because there are dedicated athletes who have trained all their lives. They're so gifted. They've sacrificed to come to the Olympics, and now they have to suffer because of this. But we have to take a stand against evil because today evil has reached its height. And the Lord will reward anyone who takes a stand against wickedness. You know, the Olympics Committee in France, they gave a very half-hearted apology. They claim that there's no semblance of the Last Supper in this performance. It was merely a display of Greek gods enjoying a party. No one is falling for this explanation. This was clearly a satanic depiction of the Last Supper involving a host of lesbian, gay, transgender characters, fronted by Dionysus, the Olympic god of wine, pleasure, festivity, madness, and frenzy. Dionysus was the son of Zeus. He was said to be born out of wedlock. He was the gender-queer Greek god, because when he was born, he was assigned a male at birth, and then he lived as a girl, and then finally at adulthood, he rejected both genders and embraced a bisexual identity. And Dionysus was known to have had an apparently uncontrollable sexuality and a slew of lovers of all types and forms, mortal, immortal. His first love was a young, pretty little boy named Ampelos. So he was an immortal being who practiced pedophilia. On top of that, he enticed a line of nymphs and women to follow him in his revelry as he traveled the countryside, and he kept them drunken with wine. And everywhere he went, he invited chaos and frenzy. So legend says Dionysus had the ability to drive men to madness. It's no wonder that the Paris Olympics has suddenly had a series of mishaps. The French railway system was sabotaged on the opening day of the Olympics, and this disrupted the busiest line of public transport on this long-awaited day. There have also been unexpected challenges. There were severe food shortages. Food is being rationed out to athletes, and raw meat is being served at the games village. It's all very strange. And then, of course, there's the uproar of its chosen entertainment. Dionysus is the deity whom they chose deliberately to open the Olympics with. And by doing so, they sealed the event with all that he represents: androgyny, gender fluidity, homosexuality, immorality, lust, perversion are all being openly celebrated in the opening of the event. But really, if you look at the roots of the Olympics, really it was always pagan, because the Olympics were originally pagan festivals. They were ritual festivals in ancient times, and it began with a foot race in 776 BC as part of a religious festival honoring the Greek God Zeus. Not many people noticed, but the games were originally very erotic in nature. Athletes performed naked because they wanted to show Zeus their physical prowess and muscular physique. Now, in the modern times, of course, the Olympics was revived, but it was dressed as a purely athletic sporting event. But now the facade has been ripped away and evil is blatantly exposing itself. You even have an appearance by a beheaded Marie Antoinette in all her gory, not glory, but gory. You've got to consider that families watch the Olympics, little children watch the Olympics, all the nations of the world are involved, all the eyes of the world are on this athletic event, and yet it appeared as though we're seeing the entertainment for some perverse hedonistic ceremony for elites that somehow spilled into the open. The Olympics has been thoroughly infected by darkness, but the Lord will not be mocked. Jeremiah 10:10-11 states, "But the Lord is the true God. He is the living God and the everlasting King. At his wrath the earth quakes, and the nations cannot endure his indignation. Thus shall you say to them, the gods who did not make the heavens and the earth shall perish from the earth and from under the heavens." It is simply amazing how the night after the opening ceremony, Paris, the city of lights, suffered a total blackout. Utter darkness cloaked the region, except for one sole building that remained lit: the Sacré-Cœur, the Basilica, the Sacred Heart of Jesus in the Montmartre region. Tom and I visited the Sacré-Cœur last year when we were in Paris, and the church is so beautiful. There's a great sense of reverence there. So while Paris was submerged in darkness, the Sacré-Cœur shined. God is still revealing powerful signs, and he exposed the spiritual condition in Paris. Except for a small remnant in the church, the city of lights is actually overrun with darkness. Have you heard of Archbishop Carlo Maria Vigano, who was excommunicated from the Vatican by order of Pope Francis, he wrote a spectacular letter addressing the Paris Olympics. He's an amazing man, a remarkable truth teller, and he mentioned outright that Brigitte Macron is transgender and Michelle Obama is a man. And he strongly condemned the Satanic Olympics in Paris as a vile attack on God by anti-Christian elite. And all this is to attack traditional family roles. And the Archbishop wrote that these satanic rituals are a recurring theme. He wrote that he was disturbed by transvestite, effeminate dances, a parody of the LGBTQ plus supper, holograms of the horsemen of the apocalypse from the book of Revelation, a decapitated Marie Antoinette celebrating the French Revolution. He wrote, "It is no coincidence that the one sponsoring this revolting carnival is an emissary of the World Economic Forum, Emmanuel Macron, who passes off as a transvestite, as his own wife with impunity, just as Barack Obama is accompanied by a muscular man in a wig. It is the reign of mystification of falsehood, of fiction erected as a totem, in which man is disfigured precisely because he was created in the image and likeness of God." He ends his letter advocating Christians around the world to take action and boycott the Olympics and its sponsors. The Archbishop wrote, "Tolerance cannot be the alibi for the systematic destruction of Christian society." I also want to share with you a Telegram post that I wrote in 2022 relevant to this issue. This is what I said. Brigitte Macron, France's First Lady, first met Emmanuel Macron when he was 15 and she was 24 years his senior. They began their affair while he was her 16-year-old student and she was his 40-year-old married teacher. His parents confronted her, but she refused to give up her affair with the teenage boy. Can you believe this? She eventually divorced her husband to marry Macron. This borders on pedophilia. I believe the exact term for sexual attraction to young teenagers is ephebophilia. Note that Brigitte comes from a very wealthy, famed family of chocolatiers, and she is highly involved in her husband's career, often sitting on his right-hand side during official meetings, to the shock of many because he is president, not her. In addition, she reads his speeches and plans the reception of the media. To those who critique this, Macron says his wife's close involvement is non-negotiable. Now, the French people have long been accusing Brigitte of being transgender. This is a trending topic following Brigitte. Surprisingly, Brigitte has taken legal action against these accusers, taking them to court, increasing the talk around the topic. All in all, this is a very strange relationship behind a man who plays a major role in wicked globalist plans, a man who once worked as an investment banker for the Rothschilds and is a passionate globalist himself. So I wrote that post in November 2022, remarking of the strange circumstances around Brigitte Macron and the possibility of being transgender. And I've also first shared publicly around 4 or 5 years ago that Michelle Obama is a man. I received a lot of resistance when I shared this publicly because as an evangelist, we discern. We rely on our discernment, and you can discern that about these characters. And I had people writing to me, sending me evidence to prove otherwise. But we cannot go by evidence that we find from an online search. The main fact checkers you find online are owned by the likes of the Rothschilds, Clintons, etc., George Soros, and so on. But we're living in a world where good disguises itself as evil and vice versa. So we have to first base our judgment on our discernment given to us by the Holy Spirit above all. And then He will lead you to sources of information that will confirm it. I'm so glad that the veil is being torn off, and this is now no longer conspiracy. The truth is being revealed for all the world to see. And the reason why this must become public knowledge is because it involves a demonic strategy, and this is so important. It must be exposed in order to dismantle it. Placing homosexual couples in leadership, it mocks God, and it opens a demonic portal over the nation. And I believe this is what ushered in the accelerated rise of support for transgenderism in America in the past few years. You just saw how rapidly it's become so normalized. But the Lord is exposing all things, and the hidden evils of the world can no longer conceal themselves with their tattered disguise. There is also a direct connection here with the Messiah whom the Jewish people await, the false Messiah, whom they believe to be androgynous. And this is also connected to the building of the third temple. Yes, the books in Judaism, Zohar and the Kabbalah, describe an androgynous serpent Messiah that they wait in anticipation for. I'm not making this up. You can do your research and find out about this. It's the reason why the transgender movement is being elevated so fervently. This agenda goes much deeper, but that is too much to go into here. And I'm going to keep that for another video. In the meantime, I hope this video blessed you. Love you. God bless you. I'll see you soon. Jesus is Lord. Thank God we have Jesus, the light of the world, leading us, guiding us, shedding His light on all things, so that what was hidden is now being revealed.